Well, I said this once and I'm forced to say it again, but this continues to be the best interior for well under $70,000. Alright, well, welcome back to Exhaust Sports Auto. My name is Kevin and you are here to witness the 2021 Genesis G80 sedan. And you better witness it and you better take some notes, because this is how you produce a proper luxury midsize sedan. More on that in a little bit. But yeah, I've been really curious to try this vehicle out ever since I tried out the G80 for you guys already. So check out that review. After this one, of course. And I was quite fond of that SUV. I mean, like I mentioned in that review, even if you're not adept to cars or you don't know a lot about vehicles, you know, you're not a car reviewer, you're not a race car driver, whatever, almost anybody can step inside one of these vehicles and understand the painstaking details that went into producing something like this. Give it a little launch here. Smooth, no problems there. Again, I'll cover that in a little bit, but let's talk about this exterior, because yeah, Genesis has mastered the art of refinement and quietness, but there's another thing that Genesis also mastered, and that's the art of balling and prestige, because like I mentioned with the GV80, dude, everybody continues to stare, to point, to take pictures of this vehicle right here, this gray sedan. It looks stunning. And I didn't really mention this in my GV80 review, but these new models from Genesis, right? You can part this amongst the likes of Rolls-Royce, Bentleys, Astons, and you know what? This would blend right in. Nobody's gonna scoff at it. Not even people on the internet scoff at these vehicles anymore. But I'm just saying, this has like that aura and that gravity to it that allows it to blend in with the likes of those, you know, high-end vehicles I just mentioned to you. You can't quite do that with an Audi and a BMW. Something about their design, it's just a little bit more plebeian, if you will. I'm serious. I mean, dude, the way that people just gawk at this vehicle, it is crazy amount of attention I got in this G80 and the GV80 SUVs. It's really nuts. People are so gravitated towards the design of these cars, and I don't blame them, because it does look like prestige, it looks like luxury, it looks like a cathedral on four wheels. Well done there. And it looks unique too. It doesn't look like a copy of any other vehicle. It's a well done vehicle, well polished. It looks grown up. And you know, we're driving the fully loaded Prestige 2.5 liter all-wheel drive model, right? Well, you know, even if you just got the advanced trim level, you're going to get a choice of 19-inch wheels. And the 19s on this vehicle are very interesting. You let me know in the comment section if you like them or not. I don't know, they're interesting for sure. They don't look like anything else, but you let me know in the comment section. Let's go ahead and let's talk about this drive now, shall we? Okay, merging onto this little highway here, you know, obviously. Chassis control on this, excellent. I've said this about the SUV as well. Such a well done chassis. This is not a sports sedan, but it is a very well calibrated body that this vehicle has. Yeah, you know, you really put your foot down into this thing, it will absolutely get up to the speeds that you need it to. This 2.5 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, okay, this thing produces 300 horsepower and about 311 pounds-feet of torque. You would be shocked at how well this motor propels this about 4,300 pound vehicle to speeds. It's actually very good. I was you know, I was really curious about trying out this 4-cylinder, and I'm so glad I finally got the opportunity, because when I drove the GV80, it had the twin turbocharged V6 in it. And of course, great motor, great thrust. You know, that motor produces 375 horsepower, 391 pounds-feet of torque. You do have to put premium fuel into these vehicles, but you know, at the highway speeds, man, this car is so silent, okay? Road noise, tire noise, wind noise, everything. It is so silenced in here. This is how you do a luxury vehicle, man. High-speed stability is great. For this generation of vehicle, right, they actually did reduce the curb weight of this car by using some more aluminum, right? They managed to reduce the weight of this vehicle by about 236 pounds, something like that, 230, 240 pounds. I forget the exact figure, but... And I'm assuming that's comparing it to like an equivalent model of the previous generation G80, which is a vehicle that I previously owned, actually, and I really loved that car. I spoke very highly of the previous generation G80. I had the 2018 base model G80, really loved that car. But actually, the curb weight of these vehicles was never really something that I complained, and still got plenty of people gawking at me, you know what I'm saying? Older gentlemen really liked it in the good old 350Z, but anyway. Yeah, curb weight is really something I never complain about in a luxury vehicle, because that's what gives cars a nice planted sensation out on the road. You know, a heavy curb weight car really kind of just digs into the road, right? Gives it a nice solid feel to it, and you feel it, you know, as soon as you get into the car, you shut the door, it feels solid. I really love that. But another thing, they use the aluminum in the right spots, like in the suspension, you know, those types of areas, but the body of it continues to be steel. And obviously, you know, Hyundai, Genesis, they own their own steel factory. Essentially, they produce their own steel. It's very common knowledge. But I praise this with Mercedes as well, because they also use a steel unibody chassis, much like Genesis. And this is what allows Genesis to be such a safe vehicle, right? That's why they continue to win these awards. It's not BS. Like, they really do win these awards because they have a nice, solid steel unibody chassis. And this is like important stuff. You know, if you're carrying around your family in here, kids, significant others, you know, you want to make sure that you're in a safe vehicle, and this vehicle continues to provide you with that sensation and feeling, both in the drive, but also just, you know, straight up crash test, right? Ride quality, it absolutely goes without saying. It rides beautifully over the small bumps, the large bumps, it doesn't even matter. It's got a multi-link suspension, front and rear, of course. Over like the sharpest of bumps, I mean, you'll hear it, but you'll never feel it, and that's just a very high quality trait of this car. Nobody's gonna have an issue with the ride, that's for sure. Also, another thing, you know, the quietness of this vehicle, a lot of that has to do with the 0.27 coefficient of drag of this vehicle, which is very good, mind you. But, you know, how is this 4-cylinder? Is this an appropriate engine option for a vehicle of this size and caliber? You know, it's about 196 inches long. Obviously, it's a mid-size sedan. So here's the thing with this motor. Off the line, there is a delay. Okay, and I kind of had that same feeling with the GV80 with the twin turbo V6. But yeah, that's the only real complaint I have with this 4-cylinder, and I guess these motors in general. But aside from that, it's got effortless thrust. But here's the thing with the 4-cylinder, it's never going to be as smooth as the V6 or V8 offerings. And of course, there is no longer a V8 offering with the G80, because the previous gen G80 obviously came with a 5-liter V8 with all-wheel drive as an option. That's gone. The twin turbo V6 replaced it. That's fine. Okay, but this 4-cylinder is actually very smooth. So that's one of the main reasons why I want to test this 4-cylinder out for you guys. And it's smooth until you start to really wind it out, really get your foot down into there and rev it out to its red line, basically. And that's when you kind of notice the more chattery nature of the 4-cylinder. That's fine, because honestly, I've been driving this car around kind of mid-throttle basically, and it's been extremely satisfying with mid-throttle thrust. And it continues to be smooth too. I never find myself needing to wind this car out to red line. Just not necessary. And that's the one place where I'll give Audi some credit. You know, they continue to have the smoothest 4-cylinder turbos, even at red line basically. It is impressive in that regards, but again, you don't have to drive these cars foot to the floor like that, because it's got such good thrust from these turbo motors that you can just kind of ease into the throttle. you drive it appropriately like that, it gives you such a nice quality sensation. So I personally don't mind getting the 4-cylinder car. I really don't. And the GV80, okay, like an advanced trim 4-cylinder versus an advanced trim 6-cylinder, it's about $5,000 difference. Same here actually, but about 60 grand for a GV80 with the advanced trim 4-cylinder, about 65 grand for a twin turbo V6. I obviously would like to have the twin turbo V6 in the GV80 because it weighs like 5,000 to 5,100 pounds with options and all-wheel drive. Here, this particular car weighs about 4,300 pounds. With the all-wheel drive, it is a fully loaded 4-cylinder model. But actually, in the base trim level, this thing weighs about 3,900 pounds actually with the rear-wheel drive 4-cylinder, which is impressive. Fully loaded, the maximum curb weight of these G80 products is now about 4,500 pounds. So again, not bad. It used to be like 4,700 pounds with the V8, right, in the previous G80. So with my calculations, I think a 4-cylinder version of this with the advanced trim, it's about $55,000, about $60,000 if I want to get the twin turbo V6. I can go either way. It really doesn't matter to me. This motor gets about 22 city, 30 on the highway with the all-wheel drive, and I believe a twin turbo V6 is like what, 18 city, 26 on the highway. Not bad, but you know, this is just a little bit better, a little bit more fuel efficient. The fuel tank is also a little bit smaller in this, about 17 gallons versus 19 gallons that you get in the 6-cylinder models. But no, this is a very well done vehicle. This is a complete package. This is a very well executed, isolated driving experience. Silent. Obviously, it's got the double pane glass, of course. Stability is good. Steering response is great. Again, I do continue to drive this car in my own personal custom mode, where I put the drivetrain in smart, and I put everything else in the sport mode, like the all-wheel drive response and the steering response, actually. And I drive with the traction and stability control off, just so the electronics don't intervene as much, so I can get a little bit less lag off the line. Does it help? A tad, but it's still kind of there. But you know, for the most part, this 8-speed transmission, they have tuned it extremely well. I mentioned this in my GV80 review, but I initially thought that they put the ZF 8-speed in here. It reacts that quickly once you get it up and moving. Like, you can actually play with the paddles once you have it in the sport mode. But yeah, I continue to mention this. You know, if you're in the luxury car market and you're not considering this vehicle, or you haven't looked into it, or you don't even know what this is, you're doing yourself a massive disservice. I mean, those other cars, I'll be honest with you, a lot of those semi-entry-level Euro cars that you're looking into, they're not as great as you might think they are. If you want to know what a well-calibrated luxury car is, this is one place where you would like to start off looking at, because this is just such an impressive car from every demeanor. You know, it's not a sports sedan, but it gives you confidence with the way that this chassis is set up. It kind of pivots around corners. It just feels natural and right. And again, like I mentioned, that steel body, the doors, the way they feel when you close them, when you just set this thing out on the road, when you just have it rolling down at 45 miles per hour, either at the city speeds or highway speeds, doesn't matter. Always has a quality planted sensation to it that I really appreciate. So something to keep in mind. In some ways, it's actually even superior to some of those Euro cars that you're looking at, because here's the problem with some of the Euro cars. I drove like a 2020 740i BMW. I get it. It's not like a fully loaded model or like the sportiest model or anything like that, but that did not feel like a 6-figure vehicle to me at all. It's a flagship product. I don't care if it does have a 6-cylinder motor in it. I mean, it didn't feel like an $85,000 starting price car to me. So this vehicle, when you get inside it, when you look at it from the outside, the way that other people respond to it, the way people respond to the interior, I mean, this more so feels like a 6-figure object to kind of drive around in. It is that impressive, actually, and that's the key takeaway here. You know, it might cost $55,000 to $60,000, $67,000 when you really top it out with everything, but even at that price, dude, this has a demeanor of a car that's literally twice the price, like well over $100,000. And it's evidenced by the way that people look at it. You can be a high-level official, pull up in this thing. I guarantee you nobody's going to scoff at it. It's got the design language. It's got the prestige now, I feel like, to, you know, you can happily put this thing on your driveway. not really have too much issues with it actually. And the few cons I mentioned, a lot of that can be mitigated if you drive it more appropriately. Just don't floor this 4-cylinder all the way. You're missing the point if you drive this car super aggressively, like, hot-blooded, right? You're kind of missing the point with this car. As a pure luxury car, this for me outdoes a lot of vehicles in its class. So with that established, let's go ahead and let's talk about the interior now. All right, please do yourself a favor and observe this interior space. Again, this is a very similar design language to the G80, but slightly different, and I will talk about that here. So this continues to be one of my most favorite interior spaces in this class by far. Here's the thing with the other vehicles. I do like other vehicles, like the Euro cars, for sure. They're fine vehicles, nothing wrong with them per se, but they're just starting to be a tad bit boring, okay? Like for instance, like the Audi interiors, the BMW interiors, I do like them, but they are just so sterile feeling. That's the thing with those vehicles. There's far more design. It's got way more artistry going on here. Like you see it with the doors here. You get like the way they implemented this wood all across the dash of this vehicle. It's got like this diamond stitch action here, but it's not like how the other companies do. It's got more of a flowing line to it. It's just a much cooler space to be. So I do like that. And again, fit and finish, solidity here is extremely high. You got attention to detail things like the knurling on these metal buttons here for like the window switches, the side view mirror switches, things like that. Just really well done. It's a nice thing to interact with. Again, most normal people, you get in here, you shut that door, it has like this nice solid feeling to it, like this bank vault sensation. I really appreciate that. And look at the way that they done the Lexicon audio system kind of speaker grills. This is different. That's a whole different design right there. Nobody else is doing that. Very interesting. It just adds to the flair, I suppose. And this kind of 2-spoke steering wheel thing going on here. It's got an extra spoke, I suppose, because it's a sedan, but it's just different, man. It's a standout feature. I really appreciate that. But here is the thing with this interior. This is actually where I start to find more of the cons with this car, right? So, as stunning as this interior looks, one of the things I continue to praise in the previous Genesis products, like the G80 I previously had, was the simplicity of interacting with all the technology, right? The infotainment, the center gauge cluster, things like that. Well, this is by far the hottest looking Genesis interior, but it's also the most complicated to use actually. So everything from the infotainment, right? It's got this 14.5-inch display, right? This big old horizontal tablet. It's cool, it looks nice, but again, I just have no idea how to use this little rotary knob thing. It's just so unnecessary. And the other thing is, this is almost like a Benz now. This actually has probably more features than a Benz does, because there's just so many kind of menus and features and things that you can customize in this car. It's really gotten ridiculous in here. But fortunately, you can also use this as a touchscreen, so I do appreciate that as well. And in this, it's a little bit easier to kind of reach over and access basically than the G80. So I'm sorry, the GV80. So that's good. I do like how the climate control continues to be separated from the screen. However, again, this is also a touchscreen. So again, it's just so unnecessary. It looks cool. This is what most people want in the bougie kind of luxury car segment. It is cool to interact with the touchscreen, but it's not simpler to interact with. Again, an insane company like Rolls-Royce acknowledges the fact that buttons, switches, knobs, this is actually what's natural to humans to interact with. So, this is just what they chose to go with. Again, it's laid out pretty well. I do appreciate that, but again, just a little bit more difficult to use. So let's go ahead and let's talk about some of the other features here. So advanced trim, that's the exact specification I would choose for any of these Genesis products. So why is that? What do you get? So with the advanced trim, you're going to be getting these 19-inch wheels, like I mentioned, and you're going to be getting matte textured wood like you see here. You're going to be getting the pano sunroof. You're going to be getting the Lexicon audio system. That's the most important thing here. It's a stunning sounding sound system. It's a huge highlight to these newer Genesis cars. It really is one of the best sounding systems. So make sure to get that. Get the advanced trim. Really well worth the money that you spend there. And you get a few other things as well. So with the Prestige trim option, what you get is the kind of real Napa leather. You're also going to be getting like this ergo seat function. Okay, so what is that? It's not quite a massage function. It's actually better than a massage function. What it's supposed to do is, if you're doing a long commute or a long drive, your back, your pelvis griddle, it's going to be slightly inflamed. You're going to be feeling a little bit, of a discomfort. So the, ergo motion seat function is actually going to shift you around a little bit, kind of help reduce the fatigue you're going to be feeling over a long road trip. So something to keep in mind. And it does truly work. I do actually like it a lot. I prefer this to most massage seating functions, actually. So something to keep in mind. Also, with the Prestige trim, you're also going to be getting that remote key access thing where you kind of like, control the car like with the remote control, basically like the key fob. You kind of move it forward and backwards. You get that with the Prestige trim. Is that cool? Of course it is. It's a nice little thing to have there. Helps you get in and out of tight parking spots. Somebody parks too close to you, kind of move the car forward a little bit. Very cool function. I do appreciate that. You get that with the Prestige trim. You'll also get the wireless charging pad for your phone. Is that necessary? I mean, again, nothing in the Prestige trim is really necessary to me. I think you get plenty in the advanced trim level. So again, look that up for yourself, see if it's necessary. And if you want to get the Prestige trim, it's an additional like $3,700. Up to you if you want to pay that, but I think you get plenty with the advanced. Of course, you got one-touch auto windows, you got automatic headlights, and of course, you get plenty of things standard with this car. Even in a base trim level, you get all the safety functions standard. So if you suck at driving, well, there you go. This thing has safety features for days, man. So very impressive. And speaking of safety, with the Prestige trim, you get like that blind spot monitoring camera system that turns on when you turn on the turn signal, which is nice, I suppose, but again, not necessary. But you get all the other kind of safety functions as standard. So again, look that up for yourself. It is a lot. It's a lengthy list. I believe you have the 8-inch gauge cluster screen here for this particular model I'm testing out here. You got a physical speedometer here as well as a gas gauge, so that is pretty cool. But again, I think like a 12.3-inch option is also available. That's exactly what I tested out in the GV80. Again, this isn't too bad. It's still pretty easy to access, all the little menus and things like that, your fuel economy numbers, all that good stuff. I'm averaging about like 22 in the city, which is about what they quote 22 cities, so I'm getting about 22, 23, not bad at all, and that's with aggressive driving. So I do appreciate this 4-cylinder turbo for legitimate real-world gas mileage figures, so that's good there. I do like the shifter here. It is very nice. Again, this all looks great. It looks very elegant, but this legitimately does work pretty well. It's very easy to use, this kind of twisting gear lever knob. Decently sized cup holders. You got USB connectivity, of course. Good amount of space in the center armrest, and it kind of splits the way that it opens up essentially. And you got some nice rear view cameras. The Genesis does a great job with their camera systems. Really appreciate that. Decent amount of space in the glove box as well. Now let's go ahead and let's talk about those rear seats. So again, getting in and out of this vehicle is very simple. No problems there. The seats, their quality continues back there. I still love that design that they have there for the stitching. Again, looks very elegant, really sets it apart from the competition. I have plenty of space to sit back there. More legroom in here than my own previous G80, so that's great to see. You have your own HVAC to play with back there. You got heated seats back there as well. No cooled seats in the back, but I forgot to mention, so the cooled seats in this vehicle, right, I have it in the front seats here. Really, it's not that worth it, honestly. It's not really cooling me down at all, and I had this thing running for quite a long time, and it doesn't manage to cool anything, unfortunately. So that's something I noticed. So I don't really care, but the heated seating function, of course, works great. So it's nice to have in the rear seats as well. You also have like these sun blockers. They're not electronic like they were in the GV80, but it's manual. You can put them up. It's cool. It's a great thing to have, but you can't electronically control the rear sunshade from the back as well. So you have a button in the middle there with the center armrest when you put that down. So that's very cool. So it's a great place to be, actually. Got a few toys back there, very nice. And you can actually press a few buttons and move the passenger seat forward and back and all that stuff, so you can play with that as well. So very good stuff there. Trunk space, great size trunk. You also have a spare tire back there as well. Very rare for a luxury sedan nowadays, so I'm glad to see that there. And speaking of tires, I mean, this thing is rocking some 245 wide tires in the front, 275s in the rear. Very chunky tire setup, and it still continues to be pretty quiet, so I do appreciate that. So kind of unnecessary, but all right, you got some big old tires. So if you got the 18-inch wheels on the base model, then you would have gotten 245 wide tires in all four corners, something to keep in mind. But yeah, trunk space is great. You cannot fold down the rear seats because this is a rear-wheel drive sedan. Most rear-wheel drive sedans, you can't really fold down the rear seats, but you do have a pass-through with the trunk. So something to keep in mind, but the trunk size is excellent, massive. You should be able to fit just about everything back there. So as a whole, man, solid vehicle. It's something to at least test drive, at least check one out, see if you like it. If you're looking at some of the other Euro cars, I mean, you're doing yourself a huge disservice by not checking out this extremely well-crafted vehicle. At least lease it, something like that. Give it a chance, I would say. Most aristocrats, they're in and out of these vehicles very often, and it's people in $70,000 to $100,000 cars that were just gawking at me while I was driving by in this vehicle. So something to keep in mind, man. I mean, this thing's got swagger for days, but most importantly, this is not some second-rate, second-grade vehicle that's just like a cheap budget option. No, there is no shortcuts taken here. This is truly like a well-done vehicle, actually. Like, the build quality in this rivals or even exceeds some of the other vehicles in the class. Really, the only other car to have like an interior this nice, to me, in my opinion, is like the ES 350 Lexus. And if you want to go crazy with it, the LS 500 and the Mercedes S-Class, the 2014 and 2020. So, again, those are some ridiculously expensive cars. This has more features than an ES 350, and honestly, I just think it's cooler, basically, because it's just the underdog, the underrated vehicle. But by Genesis making these cars, a lot of people on the internet, I've noticed them, they have taken a liking to this, and they are putting this on their short list. They're trying to check this out, and they would actually like to personally own this vehicle one day. So I think they have single-handedly changed their brand perception by just making epic cars. Just by making good cars, they have changed most people's minds about these vehicles. So I hope you take advantage of it. Hope you at least lease it, do something there. The few kind of cons I noticed with this car, like the usability of the tech. Most people, I feel like they want it to be like this. That's kind of why Genesis went this route. They want to have all the tech, all the menus, all the features to play with, And this 4-cylinder is great, plenty of thrust. It's a good motor, actually. I have no need to rev this thing out in its entirety. It's just not necessary. So it's a good driving car. Let me know your thoughts. If you tried out the G80 or the GV80, let me know how you like it. Leave your thoughts below. Thank you again for watching, though. Take care and goodbye.